Hello, everybody. It's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We have reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. This week we are covering a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, and that is music in the movies. Now, these recommendations all have music or, individual songs that play major integral roles in the films themselves, but the films aren't actual movie musicals, so there's no Fiddler on the Roof or Fame or Wizard of Oz or anything like that. These are just movies where the music is integral but incidental, if that makes any sense. Like when there's a catchy tune in a film that you just can't stop singing even after the movie's over, or if there's a few bars of music that just sort of stick in your head and play over and over again and that sort of cause recall of scenes or dialogue. Um, and that's pretty true of all the best film scores and soundtracks. They have pieces that will make you recall moments that will, sort of define different elements of a film, and I think that's really really beautiful, both about the films and then about music itself, how it's capable of sort of wrapping around your memory and bringing you back to places, which is one of the amazing things about music in general. So of course all of these pieces, as I mentioned, have that sort of really memorable soundtrack or score. And, I hope that you'll be able to find something that you really, really love within these recs. I mean, I absolutely adore all of them for very, very different reasons. And of course, there are so many other films that I won't be able to mention just because of time. But definitely make sure that you check out our video services so that you can find a movie that has music that you love if none of these really speak to you. All the three video services are CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. As always, these are entirely for free for you with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the recs. So my first recommendation comes from CleveNet's Overdrive, and that is for the classic Alfred Hitchcock thriller, Psycho. Now, Psycho, of course, is incredibly acclaimed for many, many reasons. The acting is really spot on. The storyline is phenomenal with twists and turns that you don't see coming necessarily. It's on all of these massive, massive lists for many, many reasons. Like it's on tons of AFI lists for multiple criteria. It's perennially beloved. But one of the things that I absolutely adore about this film is the score. I briefly mentioned earlier, sometimes music plays another character in the movie, and that is the case with this. Just for your basic outline, in Psycho, you are dealing with a young office worker. She feels like her life is going nowhere, that it's very unfair to her, and so she has the opportunity to embezzle a large sum of money, and she does so, and she's traveling to meet her lover, and on the way there she kind of gets trapped out late at night, and she stops at an inn. She stops at the Bates Motel, and that's where the ball really really gets rolling. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely must watch Psycho. It is required watching, I think, for any film fan. But throughout this storyline about this woman who, is trying to get away with this major crime that will allow her to set up a new life, you've got this score that there are very few scores, I think, that are both menacing and weirdly jaunty and chipper at the same way. It is absolutely a sinister score. You've got these violins that do these little run motifs that feel like you're always on the run. You're always moving. It's always about forward motion. But then along with that forward motion and that sort of like scary look over your shoulder kind of feeling that the music evokes, there's also this sort of weird chipperness to it as well, which I think that duality of nature is 100% key to this film. And the composer was absolutely trying to do that. He was absolutely trying to show multiple sides and still have that kind of overwhelming feeling of this foreboding nature. The composer's name is Bernard Herrmann. He had worked with Hitchcock many times before. I believe he also did the Vertigo score, which is also an exceptional score, by the way. And he has this rather famous quote about working with Hitchcock, and that quote is, "He only finishes a picture 60%. I have to finish it for him." Of course, meaning that the music is really what caps everything off. You've got the great suspenseful storyline, you've got the excellent performances, but it needs that extra shove to make it the movie magic that Hitchcock's work definitely is today. And that is in a huge part due to Herrmann's work with the music. This particular score is number 4 on AFI's 100 Years of Film Scores, and that's actually the top 25 scores of all time. So number 4, if you ever go and look at the list, number 4 is a pretty respectable place to be. The other scores that are above it, I know like the Star Wars movie is at the very top. I can't recall off the top of my head the other 2 spots. Oh, Gone with the Wind is another one. But number 4 is a very good place to be. Psycho was nominated for, I want to say, 4 Academy Awards. And, you know, it's one of those movies that is on the best of lists for a reason. So if you are intrigued by the concept of this, like, really powerful, strong, scary, sinister, but also chipper, dual kind of score work, if you are interested in an excellent storyline that is certainly suspenseful the first time you watch it, but just as fascinating the subsequent times you watch, check out Psycho. If you've never watched it, you absolutely have to. If you've watched it before but just want to experience the film again, this is definitely the time to do it. It's just an excellent movie, and I 100% recommend everyone check it out. So that's Psycho on CleveNet's Overdrive. Moving right along to my Hoopla digital recommendations. The first of those is for a fantastic movie that I have loved since my childhood. It's actually a recent add to the Hoopla collection, and I'm so excited it's now available. And that is for the movie The Neverending Story. If you love fantasy, you absolutely need to watch this. It's just one of my absolute favorite films of all time. You've got, you know, magic, you have adventure, you have lovable characters, you have an exciting storyline, you have this villain that's kind of amorphous that you can't quite define, but that is always present, that is always hunting. You've got an excellent score, plus you have an iconic theme song that I think most people today actually know it, even if they've not watched the film, simply because Stranger Things season 3 put this back on the map, back on the charts. I actually think it made it back on to Billboard after season 3 of Stranger Things. And then, of course, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Stranger Things season 3, why? But 2, just blip out for about 15 seconds. So at the end of Stranger Things season 3, this is the song that Dustin and his little girlfriend sing together a cappella while everything is going crazy and it seems out of place, but is also oddly perfect. This is that song. So spoiler ending, the Neverending Stories theme song is glorious, and it's one of those songs that will absolutely stick in your head. It's total earworm. And I I have loved this movie, like I said, for so many years, and I just rewatched it after it got added back to Hoopla. It had been probably the better part of a decade since I'd last watched, and it is just as wonderful and magical and charming as when I first saw it. You know, sometimes you look back at films from your childhood with nostalgia, and so sort of a rose colored glasses situation. If you rewatch it, you're like, oh, it wasn't really that good after all. This is not the case. It is still an excellent movie. Um, in the Neverending Story, you have a young boy who's having to deal with this pretty terrible bullying situation. And one day things come to a head and he's running away. He ducks into this old bookshop and he ends up discovering this book. He's like very drawn to this mysterious book with a seal on the cover. And the book is actually called The Neverending Story. And circumstances happen where he ends up in the possession of this book that he was already sort of mystically drawn to. Um, when he begins to read, you know, the story is about this fantasy land called Fantasia, and it's being threatened by this nothingness, this evil nothingness, and it's called the Nothing. It's just this sort of void of anything, and it takes away people, creatures, feeling. It's just emptiness. So I love that kind of villain. I mean, there are other villains within the storyline, but the fact that the overarching evil thing is just this nebulous nothing, that's terrifying. Like, and it's fascinating too. Um, while he's reading, you know, he discovers that the world needs the assistance of, you know, a hero, a true hero. And while he's reading all of this, he's starting to discover parts of the book are maybe a little bit real, and he doesn't know where reality is ending and this fantasy land is starting, and it just pulls you in, the whole storyline. And I just absolutely adore this movie, and the music, the soundtrack is all really very much a part of the feel and the vibe. And again, it's got that iconic theme song that, you know, the minute I hear a couple bars from it, I automatically think of the movie. It's amazing how many years can go by and I'll just like be right there watching the film again the second that I hear the theme song. That's how incredibly memorable it is within the whole story. So if you're looking for an evening full of fantasy and magic and adventure and excitement and thrills and just action and just awesomeness, please, please, please check out The Neverending Story. It is now available on Hoopla. I'm so excited about that, and I absolutely recommend that everyone check this one out. Okay, moving along to our next Hoopla digital recommendation. That is for the classic, quintessential Western film, The Magnificent Seven. Now, Magnificent Seven was, of course, recently remade into this megastar hit movie. I also enjoyed that one. It had like Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt, Lee Byung-hun, Ethan Hawke. I mean, it was a massive, massive cast, and it was a really good time. I went to the theater to see it. It was a lot of fun, but there is something just really special and different about the original piece that I think everybody should watch, whether you're a Western fan or not. The original Magnificent Seven is just phenomenal, and a huge part of why it's so phenomenal is its score, and I'll get to more about that in a minute, but that score, it's the eighth Magnificent, I'm telling you. Okay, so basic storyline. You have this teeny tiny sleepy Mexican village that is being terrorized by this villain, Calvera. Calvera is played by Eli Wallach, who, as always, is absolutely amazing in his role. He's definitely well known for his Western villains. He's worked with like the spaghetti Western style many, many times. He's a bit of a mustache twirler, but he's perfect at it. He's also just in general a phenomenal actor. If you get a chance to see him in non-Western films, He's amazing. He was in the more recent holiday movie, The Holiday, with like Kate Winslet and Jack Black. He's in that LA storyline. He's the main little old writer. He's just amazing. I love Eli Wallach. Anyway, he plays this sort of mustache twirling villain. He's the leader of a band of outlaws. They rule over this little tiny village with no rhyme or reason. That He's just horrible, and the little citizens decide to band together and hire this group of gunslingers who will hopefully depose this monster. Now, the group of gunslingers are just a group of men from very different backgrounds. They all have their own backstories, their own storylines, their own history, but they have this job. They're going to do it for money. But as the story goes along, you see their motivations really start to shift. They start training the villagers how to fight back. They form, some of them, relationships with the other villagers, and it's just a really, really excellent movie. You grow to love some of these characters, and you know the arcs they have within like a short period of time are really moving a lot of times. um, so you've got this small group of men who are trying to band against this huge, almost army of outlaws, and it's movie magic. And again, it's that score that really puts everything over the top. Elmer Bernstein did the music, and he's done several like very well toted film scores, but this one is probably, I would say, the one that's most highly touted. It is number 8 on AFI's 100 Years of Film Scores. Of course, again, that's the top 25 film scores of all time, and being number 8 is a perfectly respectable position if you're talking about movies of all time. Um, there's something sort of magical about when just a handful of notes can evoke certain images in your head, and that is all over the place with this score. I adore it. It 100% transports you back in time to the Old West. You get the feeling of these um, galloping horses. You get the feeling of tumbleweeds rolling across the ground. You feel, the tension when something bad is coming. You feel the tension when you're facing off against an evil opponent, and it's all just so well done. There are really marvelously light moments in the score, and that they really lift you as a viewer, and then there are moments that really bring you down with the sadder scenes, and it's just so perfectly integrated into the script. I can't say enough good things about it. If you like westerns, if you don't like westerns, you absolutely need to see The Magnificent Seven. This is one of the best scores of all time. It is movie magic, and you just absolutely have to watch it. So again, Magnificent Seven, available on Hoopla. All right, moving along to our Canopy recommendations. The first of those is for the absolutely phenomenal The Mission. I love this score so much. I know I love all of these scores and all of the songs, but um, Ennio Morricone is an absolute genius. He has done the score to Once Upon a Time in America. He did the score to Cinema Paradiso. He's just an absolute genius. And I think The Mission is probably his most beautiful work. I mean, as far as just having really lovely passages, having the most, I don't know, uplifting sense, this is the score of all of them. Um, Basic storyline, again, you're dealing with a story that's sort of loosely based on fact. And when I say loosely, I mean really loosely. Your main character is Father Gabriel, and that's played by Jeremy Irons. He um, ends up trying to protect this small group of indigenous people, the Guarani. They're in the jungles of South America, and this is a time when there's a lot of conflict with the Spanish and the Portuguese in that area in particular. There's a ton of slaving going on, and it's just this a horrible, horrible moment in history. And the fact that it sort of is able to show you the beauty of the situation at the same time is just fascinating to me. Um, Father Gabriel ends up um, sort of helping this former slaver to repent his previous ways. The former slaver is played by Robert De Niro. So, you've got a ridiculously solid cast right there with your two main characters. De Niro was not only a slaver, but kind of a mercenary. He was all about, the money. His moral compass was pretty broken at the time. Um, but the more time the two men spent together, the more De Niro's character, who is Rodrigo Mendoza, I would say, yes, Mendoza, the more Mendoza is, brought around to realizing some of the wrongdoing he's done in his life. So, he's so repentant that he's even able to convince these Guarini that he is sorry for the things that he's done, the crimes he's committed against these people. Um, and it's a fascinating moment in the movie to watch when this particular confrontation that I'm talking about actually happens. Um, so you've got this one Jesuit priest, Gabriel, who is essentially wholly good. He, you know, is always striving to protect. He is peaceful. He is loving. He does not come from this dark, dark background. You've got Mendoza, who represents redemption, who, came from a horribly dark place, who was essentially a bad man struggling to become a better one. And amidst these two men's lives, you also have this conflict between Spanish and Portuguese and slaving, and it all comes to a head, and the two men have to figure out a way to protect the Guarini people. And again, you have a peaceful man and a fighter, and their viewpoints are obviously going to clash, and that's a major point of conflict within the story as well. All of these moments, which are pretty deep, which are pretty heavy and pretty like intense, are embodied and um, embellished by this extraordinary score by Morricone. I mean, there is a moment at the beginning of the film where you have an iconic scene, and I don't think it's a super spoiler because it's in the trailer, where a priest is essentially tied to a cross and sent over a waterfall. And it's all like horrific, obviously, but it's also scored in this way that's absolutely beautiful at the same time. And it's one of those images that has stayed with me since the first time I saw this movie. Like, the music with that image of this cross going over the falls, it's amazing how much just a few lines from this score bring that back. Even just thinking about it now, it's like I see it in front of my face. This score is extraordinary, and it's beautiful, and it's sad, and it's moving. There's an oboe motif that goes throughout. It's the main song is called Gabriel's Oboe. Um, Father Gabriel actually can play the oboe, and that's an actual integral part of the storyline as well. But you have this little oboe that floats throughout the score. So every time you hear it, you are made to think of that particular priest. You are made to think about peace, about his mission, his goals. And it's just incredible how Morricone is able to weave that one instrument into everything. Um, there was a more recent album that Morricone put out with the singer Dolce Pontes that gave lyrics to the Gabriel's Oboe theme, and it ended up being called A Rose Among Thorns. It is utterly beautiful, strongly recommended if you've never heard it. Um, but there's just something really powerful about this one main theme. So you've got an incredible theme song, you have this ludicrously beautiful score, you have a powerful story and messaging, and really solid acting. I mean, it is an exceptional film. If you are looking for something, it's not light, it's not an easy watch at all. By no means do I mean to make it seem like it is. Um, then but if you want a film that definitely will grab you, that will tug on your emotions, that will move you, check out The Mission on Canopy. You won't regret it. It's an exceptional movie with a ludicrously good score. I believe this score is also on the top 25, that 100 years of 100 of film scores from AFI. Um, you will not regret it. Phenomenal movie. Okay, my last film recommendation for the week is for another Canopy title, and this one, significantly lighter than a lot of the others. This one is for Arthur. Now, Arthur's not my usual type of movie. It's very much in the comedic realm. It's a little bit over the top styled comedy at that. It stars the marvelous Dudley Moore. You've got a character being played by Liza Minnelli, who I do love. I absolutely adore Liza Minnelli, don't get me wrong. Um, Dudley Moore's character, Arthur, is this sort of very much alcoholic socialite. He doesn't really have a lot of goals in his life. He's very wealthy, so he gets whatever he wants. He doesn't have a whole lot of drive. He just sort of goes on one bender to the next. And his character ends up, meeting Minnelli's character, and this there she's very much the opposite of a socialite. She's like very much from a working class background. She has plenty of problems of her own. Um, and the two of them interacting is absolutely adorable. They're just very cute. Their love story is one that will make you laugh. That will is definitely not, this deep dark layered thing. It's just really quite entertaining. It's funny, it's sweet, it's lovely. Um, you also have a character being played by John Gielgud. Essentially, like, he plays this butler, but also very much father figure to Arthur. And there are actually some really sweet moments with him, despite this definitely being kind of this very over the top comedy. There are some lovely quiet moments as well. So you have this storyline of this sort of playboy, who has serious drinking issues, um, juxtaposed with some like familial issues going on as well. And all of that is tied together by a really ridiculously memorable, catchy theme song. And that is Arthur's theme, which I think is also known as The Best That You Can Do. Um, it's on all of those best movie songs or most memorable film songs of all time lists. It's on a ton of those. So if you hear a few bars of it, you will recognize it. I don't know that prior to this week I'd ever actually watched the movie all the way through. But on watching it, I 100% knew the song. I think I knew almost all the lyrics to the song at that, but even though I hadn't watched the film. So it is one of those pervasive tunes that, everybody kind of knows, even if you don't know it. And, watching this, I had a lot of fun. It was, while not my general type of movie, one that I really thoroughly enjoyed. I don't know why I liked it so much, because again, not my thing, but I did. I really had a good time. It made me laugh, and I liked the characters. Because I watched the trailer and I definitely did not expect to like Arthur at all. I thought he was just too much for me, but he was, and I think that's something to be said for Dudley Moore's inherent charm. He was just such a like sweet, enjoyable actor that no matter how kind of schmarmy, smaltzy his characters were, you still felt that thread of decency under lying under everything. So yeah, the best that you can do, that film theme is woven throughout the movie. You hear bits and pieces of it throughout the entire thing, and it just really fits. If you are looking for a light, funny romance with really solid acting, every actor in this is on point, much more so than a lot of other light comedies, I would say. Check out Arthur. You will 100% be humming that theme song for a while afterward. But aside from that, it is a totally good movie. It is really fun and really sweet. Again, available on Canopy. Arthur. All right, so those are all my recommendations for this week. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. If you have any recommendations for exceptional scores or movies with really great theme songs, please put a comment. Let me know. I'm always looking for recommendations. You know that I love watching movies, so feel free to, recommend whatever. If you have any requests for future themes that you'd like to see us cover, please put those in the comments as well. I am always looking for those. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. Bye bye.